Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy,
And I'm Diva.
and this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder.
And Liz.
And this is part 2 of False Confessions.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked this topic, but it super bums me out
Yes.
that there's so many to choose from. Like, fucking so many.
Yeah, too
So
many.
many. Far too many.
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody said they wanted deathbed confessions. Ooh, that's a good one.
I think I included a couple of those in the shocking confessions. I think there's already a couple in there, but we didn't do them, but they're in the list.
Well, one of yours included deathbed
A deathbed
confessions, but
confession,
maybe
kind of. Yeah.
moving
Yes.
forward, like next time if we do it, we can
Separate out the
make it
deathbed.
more specific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a great idea. Guys, we were reading through all of the like Q&A on our Spotify. Shout out to Maddie for like always commenting.
Yeah.
Thank you. We love you. And I just went to the one where they like talked shit and told us that our voices suck. Fuck you. I didn't mean to. We also got very lovingly called out for saying the phrase wheelchair bound.
Oh.
And that is apparently, and I wasn't aware of this, but that's like not the best way to say it.
That makes sense, actually, now that I think about it for like a second.
I know, right? And it
Wheelchair
sucks that
user?
like
Is that like better?
I'm trying to find it. Person who commented, I'm sorry, I can't find it, but please you write us an email and tell us how to say it properly. I find that it's really easy and really common, and we do it all the time, to be ableist. I feel like of all the isms, it's like the most overlooked
Well,
one.
there's just language things that are just like in our language, and like even things that I haven't even made a full effort to get rid of, and like the history of words like insane, or the history of words like fucking. There's a couple that are so common that you just say them all the time. Like I think ableism is just so baked into our language.
It really is, and it's hard to get it out. And we do it, and like when I'm like, dude, isn't that crazy? And it's like, part of me feels like crazy has been co-opted in a totally different way.
Yeah, I mean that's like such a general word now, but
it is.
Like, but I've tried to not do the thing of like, oh, I'm so OCD about this, right? Like, like using a real clinical thing for
right. We do say lame a lot, which is really fucking bad, and we gotta stop.
Right.
So sorry, guys. This is a come to Jesus moment for us that I just wanted to
language
on the podcast, because I do think there's it's one of the few isms that just like nobody champions. Like we've all had our moments with other isms, and like society at large has been a lot better about it.
I mean, I'd like to think I champion against being ableist, but then like I said, it's just sneaky language things that you don't even realize you're doing. It's always good to be reminded.
You don't, and it makes it like worse. Yeah. So anyway, we just want to call ourselves out for those. We are sorry, guys. We're going to try to always do better. And the way that we were called on this was so fucking kind and lovely, and just like,
thank you.
So much love to you. Thank you for doing that. And I'm a piece of shit for not writing down who you were, but I read it like on the go, and I was like, oh, I got to talk about this, and at least I remember to talk about it. So, anyway, so this is part 2. Now that we've had our moment, is there anything else we want to talk about, or are we just good to get into it?
No, you might hear noises coming from my cat, who uses this recording time to snuggle me aggressively.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
If you hear
I love
any
that
little cute sounds or
moments. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's get into it then.
Okay.
She's the cutest. Yes. All right. I'm going to talk about John Purvis. This is a false confession. Again, obviously. And I'm going to jump into it. I'm just going to get crazy with it. Here we go. November 8th, 1983, when your girl here was about 11 months old. 38-year-old Susan Hamway was found stabbed to death in her home on Poinsettia Drive in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Her 18-month-old daughter, I've also heard son, Shane, was also found dead from dehydration and neglect.
Oh,
Yes.
that's horrible.
Now,
Dehydration?
yes, because the baby who was 18 months old was trapped in the crib, couldn't get out,
Oh
and
God,
nobody knew
that's
that. Yeah,
horrible. I'm traumatized
really fucking
as a
horrible.
baby having person, and like
I know. I'm really
it's fucked up.
sorry.
That's fucked up.
Yes. She had moved to Fort Lauderdale pretty recently. I think, was this November? So like 5 months prior from Aspen, Colorado, after she had divorced her husband, Paul. Now, police, I think it was like her friends were finally like, hey, we haven't heard from her in like a week. Can somebody check on her? So police checked on her and they came to the conclusion that she had been killed on November 4th. And what's really sad is that the baby had died November 7th, one day before they found their bodies.
That's so
So
sad.
this poor baby
Oh
Shane
my
had
God.
lasted 3 fucking days. Yeah.
Why do you gotta do slow, brutal baby murder for me? That's
I'm
rude.
sorry. I'm really
Says
sorry.
the girl who did that, like, Lucy Leppy case, like right before I had a NICU
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah. I'm like, first of all, Diva, I understand some shit's come to light for you, but like you used to fucking torture me with this kind of
Yeah,
shit.
no, no, no. It's true, I do.
All right. So 3 days later, after doing some interviews around the area, police interviewed 42-year-old John Purvis, her neighbor from 3 houses down. Friends and neighbors told police that John had been bothering Susan for the past few months, and John was known for being a fairly peculiar man. So let's talk about John.
Okay.
John Purvis was born 1942 to John and Emma Purvis. I don't know that he was a
Senior.
junior.
Okay.
I don't know if it was a junior senior because I
Okay.
think that they maybe had different middle names. When John was only 3 years old in 1945, his father died suddenly while in Iwo Jima
Mm,
fighting in World War II.
wow.
Yes. So I will say war is fucking garbage
It is.
and fuck that shit. So young John here, who already had some physical and potentially mental ailments, was very disturbed by his father just disappearing out of his life.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think, oh, 3 years old, you're not really fully aware yet. Yes, they are. They're aware. When their
Yeah.
parent disappears forever, that's going to fuck them up. And it did.
Yeah. Fuck anyone.
This trauma stayed with him forever. So as he grew up, he was pretty unpopular and he struggled academically. He could not keep up with his peers. Um, as you can imagine, he wasn't great with girls. He did try to talk to them, but he was pretty terrible at it and was often the recipient of bullying at school. His mother did remarry and attempted to have a normal life, but John just could not overcome his issues. When he was a teenager, he was officially diagnosed as having schizophrenia. And even as an adult, he was not able to live on his own. Instead, he remained living with his mother, who I do believe ended up divorcing, possibly, in part due to John's situation. And he suffered panic attacks. He just had a really hard time.
Yeah.
And again, I think it was a combination of pre existing stuff and what happened with his father. So as an adult, John, who many people called Johnny, continued to live at home, tried his best to make friends in the area. He was known as a very peculiar man, but generally quiet, kept to himself. He wasn't really problematic. He was just weird. And one of these friends that Johnny maybe had a little romantic interest in was Susan Hamley. So, like I said, she had just recently moved to Fort Lauderdale after divorcing her husband, Paul. Now, Paul and Susan had met a few years prior and had had a pretty tumultuous relationship from the start. Paul was a Vietnam veteran with a really shitty attitude and a big mouth and was known for being obnoxious and stupid. Like, I
Okay.
love that they're like, he was known for sucking. It's like, wow. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Great
So,
profile you just painted of that person. Yeah.
yes. Yeah. This guy's not a cool dude.
Oh my gosh.
Susan was beautiful, kind, and her friends were like, "Don't get involved with this guy. Like, you want nothing to do with him." But, people are going to do what they want to do. And she did get involved with Paul. And fairly soon after, she did become pregnant. And the two agreed to marry, but with Susan signing a prenup that said she was to get nothing should they ever divorce. Now, I don't know for sure how much money Paul has, but I think it's a fairly significant amount. And I don't know what he did to get this money, but I think he had a lot of money somehow, maybe his family money, and he did not want to share this with Susan. So he was fucking pissed when she got pregnant, and he was like, "Fine, I'm going to do the right thing, but like you're getting nothing if and when we divorce."
Okay.
Soon after they married, Susan gave birth to their child, son or daughter Shane, in 1982. And Paul here was, as you could probably imagine, fucking abusive, and physically and emotionally. And pretty quickly things fell apart, with Susan filing for divorce and moving to Florida to get away from him. And this is where she meets Johnny, among other neighbors. As I had mentioned, after meeting Johnny, she told friends and neighbors that she found him odd and slightly off-putting,
Okay.
but she didn't tell him to like leave her alone. She never was like, "I want you to stop bothering me." I think that she probably felt bad for him, and she was such a kind person. So she kind of let him hang around, because she felt bad about it. The last time sorry. So anyway, she did tell people, like, this guy's weird, but she never told Johnny like, "Hey, fuck off," you know.
Okay.
Um so she was like, "He's annoying, but like I feel bad for him, I think." The last time anybody had spoken to Susan, it turns out, was November 1st, when her friend chatted with her on the phone in the morning. 1 week later, she was found dead in her home. The interesting thing is that they think she died November 4th, which means that there were days where just she didn't talk to anybody, didn't see anybody, but was still alive. Now, as I said, she'd been stabbed to death, but she had also been strangled with a phone cord. So this was a very brutal murder. Despite its brutality, there weren't a lot of leads, and police, as we know, are pretty stupid. So they had nothing to go on until neighbors came forward and suggested that it may have been Johnny. And police just latched onto this like it was DNA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the second they heard this guy's name, they were like, "This is the guy who did it."
Okay.
So, as I mentioned, Johnny here had a lot of mental health issues. He had a very difficult time, being on his own, and most of the time, he was with his mother. I think part of the abandonment of his father leaving him made him extremely, needy and attached to his mother. So, it was unlikely that you would see him very often without her for long periods of time. He wasn't able to really answer questions or make decisions without his mother. Police knew this, and they brought him into the police station without his mother and questioned him. Now, the first time they brought him in, his mother was aware of it and she put a stop to it very quickly. Police went and got him a second time without his mother's knowledge and questioned him for hours about this murder. As you can imagine, finally, towards the end, he started to crack and said, "I stabbed her, I killed her, I liked her. She rebuffed my, you know, uh
Yeah.
romantic advances,
The
so
usual.
I murdered her." Yeah.
Yeah.
Now one of the guys, who a psychiatrist, actually came in and interviewed him when he was brought into the police station. Now he was brought in January of 1994, or 1984, my apologies. So a few months after the murders. And, he said, I showed him some photos of things, and some of them were like a mother with a child, and some of them were like violent imagery. And you could just see his whole body change when I showed him those. So to me, that means he's in denial about what he did and in denial about what happened. And it's like, maybe the guy just knows why he's there, and, that shit's like stressing him out, and he doesn't react like normal, quote unquote, people do, or
Yeah.
like you would expect someone to, right? So this psychiatrist sort of egged the police on, and they decided, "Oh yeah, we're gonna, this is our guy." And they have this confession. Now, what else the police have are a bunch of fingerprints, none of which match Johnny, of course.
Okay.
And they
Okay. Yeah.
also, yeah. So they ignore that, and they decide to go to trial. They said, like, so one of the neighbors said that the morning of November 4th, they heard voices inside the house. They identified one of the voices as being Johnny and the other as being a woman who police decided must have been his mother who was helping him cover things up, right? However, another neighbor testified to seeing Susan that evening. So like 11 hours after they supposedly heard this man and woman in the house discussing murdering Susan and what to do with the baby. So they have
Mm.
conflicting, eyewitness statements. And so they sort of just ignored them. They go to trial. They try to ignore the fingerprints. They ignore this other witness who said that they saw Susan alive after, Johnny was supposedly in her house with his mother, who also they never charged, which if they really thought this was true, why didn't they charge his
Right. She
mother,
sounds
right?
pretty guilty. Yeah.
She sounds very guilty. And we'll get to it, but there is another little thing that they decided to ignore. So he goes to trial March 14th, 1985. He is convicted of first-degree murder and sexual assault and second-degree murder for the little daughter, I guess, little girl. He was sentenced to life in prison. Now, in 1992, his convictions were upheld on appeal. He got a new attorney, Stephen Wysotsky, who filed a public records request for the investigative file. During his research on this case, he discovered a number of problems with the confession.
Mhm.
He also found a ton of evidence that had been overlooked or just straight up ignored. So his description of Susan's clothing when he killed her was wrong. The description of how she was killed was wrong. He said that he had gagged Susan. She was not gagged.
Okay.
She was gagged, but he said he gagged her with a handkerchief. She was gagged with paper towels, which is
Okay.
a very big difference.
It's still
He,
missing the mark. Yeah.
yes, he also said, and this is a huge one to me, he said that he strangled and smothered her baby. But the baby from the beginning was known to have died from dehydration,
Right. Not smothered.
not being smothered. So police were just like, that's fine that none of this matches. We're just going to keep going along.
Yeah.
This defense attorney also found a memo in the prosecution's file detailing how information had come to police in May of 1985, 2 months after he was convicted, suggesting that Susan's murder was a contract killing and that the murderer was a man named Robert Beckett.
Have we done contract
Now,
killings?
I think we have. This could
Loose
fit
for
under this
hire?
too. Yeah, I think we did. That's a good
No.
one. I don't know. Did we not?
Sorry. I was just like, wait.
No, no, no. Yeah, it's a
I
good
don't know. I don't
question.
know that we have.
Well, in any case, this man,
Okay.
so he had this man, Robert Beckett, had a son, Robert Beckett Jr., who was an abusive piece of shit. And his ex-girlfriend, after he beat her up, went to police and said, hey, my now ex-boyfriend, Robert Jr., was, boasting about how his dad had murdered a woman in Florida for a contract killing. And I think it might be Susan Hamway. Police ignored this entirely. So pretty fucked up.
Oh.
Yeah, so pretty shitty. So, prompted by this memo being found, authorities reopened the investigation, and in 1992, they found 54-year-old Robert Beckett, who was now a born again Christian who was in baptism.
Of course he is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, close to a deathbed confession, he finally said, if you give me immunity, I will tell you what really happened. And police agreed. And he said, okay, me and another man, Paul Serio, were contracted by Susan's ex-husband, Paul, to murder her. We were paid $14,000 to do so.
Mm.
And he detailed everything that happened on the day of her murder with total accuracy. So,
Okay.
police believed him. He had really good information. I think they could trace the money. They then arrested Paul Serio. What's his, oh yeah, Paul Serio. Yeah, it is Paul. It's Paul and Paul. Paul and Paul. I thought I was wrong. So they arrested Paul Serio in Texas, charged him with murder. The next day, they arrested Paul Hamway in Aspen and charged
So
him
many
with murder.
Pauls. Okay.
So many Pauls.
Yeah.
So as to why he was paying them to kill Susan, it's like, why would he do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
they just got divorced. Who cares? Well, as I had mentioned, they had signed that prenup wherein she wasn't to get any money if they divorced. Now, the problem was they had a kid. So even though she wasn't getting any alimony post-divorce, she was legally entitled to child support outside of the prenup. The prenup didn't
Doesn't cover
overrule
that.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't cover this. Not only was she entitled to child support, but Paul was ordered to pay her $150,000, which,
Oh,
like,
like a
I'm really
one-time
interested.
thing?
Yeah, I don't even know. I just
Okay.
saw that he was told to pay her that much in child support, which I'm like,
That's a lot.
a month? Like a year?
I
Like
mean, if
what
maybe
the
if they were, like, really, really rich, because I know they kind of scale it to, like, how much you make.
And that's the thing, like, I'm wondering, like, how he had this much money when he was just, like, an army guy and, like, a
Mm,
fucking loser, you know? So I
yeah.
don't really know what the deal is there. There wasn't a lot of information on that, but he really didn't want to pay her this money. So instead, he hired these 2 guys for $14,000 to murder her.
And he also
And for
kills his
10
kid.
and his own child. Yep.
No,
He didn't even check on his own fucking kid. He
it's
didn't tell them to
horrible.
kill. It sounds to me like if somebody actually heard them discussing what to do with the baby, that means he didn't even bother to, like, tell them that his baby was gonna be there. Like, this guy is a
You
total piece of
probably
shit.
didn't even think about it, like, sounds
Yeah,
like.
didn't even care
Yeah.
at all. Yeah, this guy's horrible. So, for 10 years, these guys got away with this while this poor man, uh, sat in prison. So, hours after these guys were arrested and charged, John Purvis, Johnny here, was released from prison. He was released February 24th, 1993. His conviction was vacated and all charges were dismissed. In 1994, Paul Hamwee and Paul Serio were both given life in prison for the murders. And John Purvis in February of 1995 was given $1 million settlement for the 10 years that he spent in prison. Now, I believe he died recently, but what I had read is that even though he got this $1 million and it's seemingly like a happy ending, like he was even more like damaged from his time spent in prison because he was already such a like, you know, fragile person.
Yeah.
So, he had all the money he could ever want, but he was really, really traumatized from this experience and it basically ruined his life, which is pretty
Wow.
fucked up. Yeah,
Wow. So this
pretty fucking bad.
asshole who killed his wife and kid also kind of, like, took this guy's life. So
Yeah,
it's
he
like a
totally
third
fucked him
victim.
up.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Yep, yep, yep.
Wow.
Pretty bad. Mhm.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah,
L
sorry.
lightly traumatizing, a horrible thing.
Yeah,
Oh my god. What a piece of shit. Money. It's just also a
yeah,
money thing. I hate when it's, like, something so gruesome and it's just, "Oh, I didn't wanna pay some money." It's like, "Okay." It's just so
I know.
shallow and pathetic. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. No, I know. It's really bad. And to just, like, be cool with killing your own kid, and, like, the way that that poor baby died is
No, oh
so
my god.
fucked up, like,
That's so fucked up. I'm, like, a little traumatized, like I said.
I know, I'm really
If
sorry.
if
Sorry to
my
do that
baby
to you.
cries for, like, a nanosecond, I have, like, an actual, like, heart attack.
Yeah. No, I get it. I understand.
Oh my
I
god.
know. Well,
Oh my
in
god.
any case, there you go. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. What's yours? I
Okay.
hope it's
Well,
better.
mine's also upsetting.
Oh, great.
There's no babies, but it's still very upsetting.
Okay.
So this is Huwe Burton. Um,
Okay.
and I picked this one, as you'll see, it's quite emblematic, I think, of a lot of cases like this case. So it's kind of allows me to yell about some broader issues.
Okay.
Um, this happened in 1989 in the Bronx in New York City. Um, Also, side note, we should do like murders of New York City. That would be a good list.
I've been wanting
We've
to.
never done that.
I
We did like
I think it would be
Chicago,
really
did
good.
a few like
Yeah.
regional ones, but I think we
Mhm.
could do New York. Um,
Yeah, we
yeah,
should.
and
I
I
agree.
and I could talk about how I actually don't like New York City, but that's like a very unpopular opinion of mine. Um,
I don't agree with you. I love New
no one
York.
does. No one agrees with
I'm
me,
really
but
mad at you for saying that. How dare you?
I want to not be an asshole about it. Maybe I'll go and I'll love it one time. But like I've been like 8 times, and every time I'm like I don't like
Do you
it.
go in the summer? Do you go in the winter? Do you go in the fall or the
Different
spring?
times. I just don't enjoy
Really?
it. Um,
What is
no,
wrong with you?
I don't enjoy it,
It's
man. It's very stressful. Anyway,
like my favorite city. Every time
Ooh,
I'm there, I'm like,
ooh.
you could cut my legs off, and I'd be like, it's cool, I'm happy.
LA is my favorite city, genuinely. Like, I love these hot strip malls sprawling, like, I just love
Ugh,
it. I love it.
car culture. Rory gave thumbs down to New York City. He's in here getting ready to go to work, and he hears us talking,
He
and he
agrees with
went.
me.
He made
Nice.
like the tongue sound. Yeah, he agrees with you. You're
Okay.
both wrong. That's fine. You guys have every right to be wrong. That's fine.
Okay. I like it.
She's like,
Yeah,
fuck
I
you.
my dad and my dad and my like one of my best friends who are both like diehard like New York people,
Me
like those
too.
really diehard people, and they're like get really actually like heated and red faced when I say that, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I
Yeah. I mean,
don't have a
LA
good
is
time.
very, very different,
It
but
is
I
so
feel
different.
refreshed when I go to New York because it's
Yeah,
so
I feel
different.
relieved. I like a tear comes to my eye when I'm passing like the piles of garbage and strip malls of home. I'm like, oh, I'm home. Yeah. Um,
I fucking hate it.
I love it. Okay. Okay, back to the Bronx.
Anyway, okay.
1989. So Hugh was 16. He was a perfectly normal kid. There's not a lot of backstory here. He is really, really close with his parents, who are Raphael and Keziah. I think
Hmm.
that's how you say it. And they are both Jamaican immigrants. I believe they initially moved to London, actually, and then they relocated to New York City. They're pretty like not like rich, but they're like fine, well-to-do, fine. They rent out
Hmm.
2 floors of essentially like a 3-floor home turned into apartments. So they rent like 2 of the 3 apartments. And they're doing great, fucking chill ass family. But suddenly, I should say that the arrangement's a little weird because they rent out the first and third floor. I think I said that.
Okay.
So the second floor is like someone else. So they probably have to like
Okay.
walk through someone's apartment. It's a little weird, but that's what they
Okay.
have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I guess they need the extra space, or why not?
Yeah.
Um, so the night of January 3rd, 1989, Hugh came home from school, high school presumably, and he found his mother Keziah stabbed to death. Brutally. She had been stabbed in the neck multiple times. She was undressed from the waist down. Her
Oof.
purse was emptied on the floor, and her car was also missing. So a picture is painted. What happened here? Um, there was no sign of forced entry. Uh, and Hugh's dad was actually out of the country at the time, visiting family.
Hmm.
Um, so he's out of the picture, out of this, suspect pool.
Okay.
A couple of detectives on the case, named Frank Vigiano, Stanley Schiffman, and Seville Jones, they bring Hugh in for questioning. And these detectives interrogate Hugh right away. And guess what? Because Hugh is a black teenager in New York City,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
1989. Guess what they've decided? That he did this.
That he did it no matter what.
Yes,
Like that's
no
it.
matter what.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
They basically tell him, we know you did it from like fucking 5 minutes in, and you should just
Hmm.
confess. And if you say it, you'll be given a lot of leniency. They give him that like line of bullshit.
Right. 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 Right.
They keep him there for a really long time. Like, how this is going to go. And he was in shock from finding his mom like that. That's horrific, right? It's traumatic.
Hmm.
They've kept him up. On top of that, he hasn't slept. They also keep him from seeing his dad. He's not, which is like, I'm sure illegal. He's not allowed to have his dad there.
Yeah.
Which is artificially. They threaten him with all kinds of charges if he doesn't confess. They threaten him with getting charged with statutory rape, which I guess he had a girlfriend who was maybe a little bit younger. I don't know what if that was even valid for them to charge him with that.
Right.
But they're
That's
trying to
silly.
just trump up some charges to throw at
Hmm.
him, and he's a terrified kid.
Hmm.
At first, Hugh says, I was at school. So fucking like I have a clear alibi. In the late
Yeah.
morning or early afternoon, when this happened that day. But frustratingly, the homeroom teacher whose class he was in actually
Hmm.
tells police, "Oh, there's no record of him being in her class."
What a fucking asshole.
Yeah, she's kind of an asshole. And,
Oh
and
my
I'm like, first of
God.
all, as a teacher, here's my inside teaching knowledge question: did you take attendance, bitch? Because
Yeah. If you
you take
didn't,
attendance whenever you're
right.
teaching a class. You take the
Yeah.
fucking little check mark of who's there. So if you didn't, then you're saying, oh, well, there's no record, then that's on you for not keeping track.
Right.
You can't say
Right.
it's definitive that he wasn't there. Like, I don't
No.
know. She's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, and you don't remember seeing him? Like, come on. Come the fuck on.
Come on.
Mm-mm.
Eventually, Hugh is unfortunately broken down, and they effectively coerce him into confessing. And he says what a lot of folks in this situation do, basically that he would have said anything to get out of that room. He felt
Yep.
trapped. He felt like he would never get out, literally. And they were literally
Mm-hmm.
imprisoning him unless he confessed. They were forcing him to.
Yeah. Yep. They were.
They make him do a video statement and a written confession, and they feed him word by word what to fucking say.
Yeah.
In the confession, he talks about basically a totally artificially invented narrative that they feed him, like I said, verbatim, word for word, about how he was quote unquote. And I love the analyst later who like called this out. This is a 16-year-old kid. And he says when he talks about being on drugs, he says this is a language quote. I was stimulated on drugs. And it's like no 16-year-old puts it that way.
That's not a thing. Yeah, that to me,
that's repeating.
like this, absolutely repeating.
Yes.
Like,
yeah,
the perpetrator was stimulated on. Like, I'm surprised you didn't say that.
I was stimulated on
like,
drugs.
That's fucking ridiculous.
And it also is indicative to me of someone who doesn't do drugs, which you didn't.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, that kid's a square. Like, he didn't even like judge up the language.
He didn't even question that language. Or change it at all.
Goodness.
So he was stimulated on drugs, quote unquote, according to this fake confession. He owed a drug dealer money because guess what? Hugh is a crack addict. And again, this is 1989, New York City. So we're in the peak of this like racist hysteria about crack, which is partially like I won't get down this whole like rabbit hole, but it's partially a real drug crisis that is thrust upon the Black communities by like the systemic bullshit, but it's also partially like media hysteria and like people are doing cocaine just as much, if not more, in like white communities, and no one cares, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But because crack is done by poor people, it's like, oh no. It's also penalized more and punished more. But anyway, it's the peak of this, right? And also our president in 1994 wrote a law to specifically punish crack more than cocaine.
Yep. Because one is for poor people and one is for rich people.
One's for Black people. Get it? Anyway, so this is the peak of that. This like hysteria that's racist about crack. So of course they make young Hugh here a crack addict who owed his drug dealer money, and it could not be further from the truth. According to Hugh, according to his family, people that knew him, it's like comical. Like this is a straight A
this
kid.
Is
like
fucking ridiculous. What
he
is
did
wrong?
not do fucking crack. Like.
But this is like how deep the racism and just hatred of like people of color goes, that this is such an easy sell despite being fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, and they know it's going to be an easy sell to a jury and to other people. Once they slap the word crack in there, it's like, oh yeah, Black teenager.
Oh, he's got black teenager and there's crack. Yep, that's that.
There it is. That's that'll happen. Make murders happen. So they claim, and he claims in this fake confession that he demanded $200 to pay the drug dealer from his mom, and when she wouldn't give it to him, he killed her.
That makes sense.
He then called his drug dealer and paid him back using the car, the mom's car that was missing, right? And then the drug dealer helped him stage the scene to look like a rape and robbery.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
It's a lot for a 16-year-old. Yeah. The second he's out of that police custody, he recants and gets a lawyer and is like trying to scramble, as the people always do.
Yep.
Well, we might be asking, what happened to her car? Did they find her car? Well, yes. Let me tell you about it. A dude named Emmanuel Green was found driving the fucking car a week after the murder. And this guy is not a stranger to this family. He's actually the motherfucking guy who lives in the second floor of the house they live in.
So what? Oh, come on.
He's the tenant on the other floor in the same building. And he had only lived there for a few months. This guy had an extensive criminal history, including charges for violent assault and for rape. Both.
So why? Oh my God. Okay,
but,
continue.
Yeah, he's found after they've already pinned everything on Hugh. So in the detective concocted story, they kind of make Hugh confess to, they slap all these extra details in about giving the car to the drug dealer. They kind of go back and make it fit with what they're going to go make Emmanuel Green say. So they're like creating two fake statements for two separate people to match up with each other. So they say, okay, that's what the bit I just mentioned about like giving the drug dealer the car and having the drug dealer come help stage the crime. They like slap that on there afterwards. Then they go to Mr. Green and make him do a video and written confession to perfectly match the first bullshit story they made Hugh tell, saying, yep, I went and I got the car as payment. Yes, I went and helped him cover up the crime and stage it. And just so it all like boop, 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 matches neatly, right? Coincidentally, question mark, Emmanuel
question mark.
Emmanuel was found dead before the trial, so he never testified.
What?
Oh, he's dead. Yeah.
Okay. Wonder how that happened. Yeah.
Murdered? Question mark. At trial, Hugh and his lawyers asserted that he was innocent. They argued, obviously, the confession was coerced. They put forward fucking Emmanuel, this motherfucker, as the obvious suspect. And the lawyers tried to put experts on false confessions up to go through all the reasons why this was coerced, but the judge denied this request, so they weren't allowed to present on that at all. They basically were not allowed to properly argue that it was a coerced confession whatsoever.
Seriously?
Yeah. So Hugh is found guilty. Not shocking. He's sentenced to 15 years to life.
Oh. That's interesting that it's not a harsher sentence.
Yeah, actually. Maybe the juvenileness in this rare case, actually, his age actually counted, kind of. In 2009, he was actually released on parole. He had served 19 years in prison at this point.
Wait. So he just served his time?
We're getting there. Hold on. So Hugh, even though he got out, he was on parole, and he actually remained steadfastly committed to pursuing his exoneration. Even though he wasn't in custody, he wants this shit off his record permanently.
Yeah, fuck yeah, he didn't kill his mom.
Yeah, he wants to set the record straight. Exactly. So he actually gets in touch with the amazing people at the Innocence Project, who are rad.
Hell fucking yeah.
They do really good work. And they start their own investigation. They find just like boatloads of evidence on Emmanuel, some of which I already went through, his violent history, all this stuff where it's like, fucking duh, he did it, right? He had her car. Like, come on. He was right there.
Yeah.
And the no force entry thing, it's like colossal duh.
Yeah.
The Innocence Project also finds evidence that those 3 detectives I mentioned before who put this on Hugh right away, they also procured false coerced confessions in 2 other cases just months before, using the exact same tactics they used on Hugh.
Dude, fuck these motherfuckers.
So they were doing this like every day. This is like a normal work day for them. Fast forward to January fucking 2019, 10 years after Hugh's release, he's actually finally and officially exonerated. It took him 10 years of working on it.
How?
Fucking Innocence Project, just like squeaky wheeling it and fucking submitting thing after thing after thing. He finally got it. His conviction was vacated, and the judge ruled that his confession was false and like not, reliable piece of evidence. Yeah, by this point, though, he did have to have a wrongful conviction on his record for 28 years in total, so it's still pretty fucking shitty.
Yeah, that's fucked up
for him. Yeah. But yeah, Hugh is an elevator mechanic today. He's also an avid marathon runner, and a really successful, awesome dude. He's also been super, super, super vocal, talking about his case, giving speeches, serving on panels about unjust convictions and like false confessions. He's also advocated for like laws that are like make this less possible. But
wait, did he get money? He didn't get money?
That's a great question. Huwe Burton settlement. I'm gonna let the internet tell me.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. I left out the settlement. I talked about that in the Icelandic case. A Bronx man will get an $11 million settlement. So
fuck yeah, dude.
Fuck yeah, Hugh.
I mean, that's terrible. Fuck these people, but I'm
he spent
so
19
glad.
years behind bars, so I would say he can have that.
I think he
Um,
should get more, but that's fine, whatever.
that's 11 million's fine. So that's just you can tack on all the settlements, by the way, to the New York City police budget, which is already one of the biggest budgets in the world, including of some countries' militaries.
And is paid for by the people of the state of New York, which
Yes.
is absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually I think I saw a thing about it for LAPD too, like recently, where in the police budget, like, which is already itself like ridiculous, like 90% of every city county's budget, right? Not education, not programs, or fucking not anything that helps people, it's just cops. But like,
right, just cops.
Just that, like a huge amount of their money is paying out lawsuits and settlements because they're constantly, fucking shit up, killing people, and beating people up.
Yeah.
Anyway, yep. So they're paying $11 million to him. Thank you for reminding me about that. I missed that key detail.
Yeah, no, all good.
Yeah. So he's a happy, rich elevator mechanic.
I love that he's like choosing to like just do work because he probably wants to like have something to do, or probably like felt like he missed out on that part of his life,
Yeah, I'm sure it's like satisfying to be like normal too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think he's based in Oregon now.
Oh, cool.
I think because I saw a thing, or at least he's done work there, because I saw a thing about him working in Oregon to help pass legislation there that would prohibit law enforcement officers from using deception while interrogating people under the age of 18, which maybe they shouldn't for anyone of any age, but
yeah, but especially with like children who are like easily
with children.
fooled, like that's not cool.
So there's a couple things like that where like whenever there's laws related to police interrogations and police like conduct, he's like gone and lobbied and done speeches, and so he's been really, really, really active as a voice for change, and he seems like a really, really warm, cool dude. I also saw an interview of him in the news where he was like saying he doesn't hold any anger about this, and he's like super like loving and warm, and like just like isn't angry at anyone about anything.
Crazy,
and I'm like I would be.
I hold anger for him. Like
yes, I hold anger about like, much pettier things all the time. Like so he's
every day of my life.
He's seems like a really lovely person.
He's an example for us all.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'll follow him, but
no, I probably won't. I'm really angry. I was just bitching to you about like petty shit before we
no, me
came
too.
on here.
Me too.
I'm always angry.
Yeah, same. Well, wow, what a cool ass fucking guy. I just looked him up. He looks super happy. Like, doesn't all he? The time.
No, all of his pictures, press pictures after this story came out, he's like super smiley.
He is. And there's a picture of him like jogging, and just another picture of him smiling.
Yeah.
There's a picture of him crying, but that's fair.
Happy crying, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, and I want to talk about this case too, because it's like one thing with the other cases I hadn't gotten into were like just probably the sheer volume, like mountains and fucking mountains of volumes of Black people and Black women and Black people who have had this tactic used on them of like coercing a confession, and like
that's not true.
I'm sure it's like if there's a pie chart, it's like they make up a disproportionate chunk of that pie. So
I'm sure.
Yeah, especially in this era of like bullshit 80s and 90s. Oh my god.
Yeah. Fucking scary shit.
Not that it's better, but it was really shitty.
I mean, cops suck, so I don't know what else to say about that. But
everywhere, always, through all of time. Yes.
100% of the time. Yes, we're talking about your family member.
My uncle's a cop. No, we hate him too.
My brother-in-law is. Sorry.
Even cop dogs, man. I'm sorry. They gotta get a different job. They gotta get
that's not their fault.
Jobs.
I draw the line there. It's not their fault.
You like the cop dogs?
They're just good boys doing what they're told. They don't know.
No, they gotta.
They're innocent. They're naive.
They gotta go online and get a new job.
Shit. All right, what are we doing next week?
What was my really good topic I liked? What was it? My brain.
I know. I'm looking at
like
it.
2 hours.
Do you want me to tell you? You told me last time. You remember?
Yeah, I remember now. I wanted to do copycat killers, and actually there's two ways that this is kind of used, and there's a show called Copycat Killers, which is exclusively about copying like media, like movies and TV, but I wanted to do copycat killers, just people copying other serial killers.
Other people. Okay.
Just that.
Great.
Yep.
Great. And to clarify, there's nobody on here that is copying BTK, right?
No, but he really wishes he had a copycat killer. He's reaching.
Yeah.
He tried
but
to
he's
say
not
that
going to have one.
Gilgo Beach guy is his copycat guy, and he's not.
How would that even be? Like, how?
He did a whole thing, and also like Dennis is out there like saying all this shit. Little Dennis, baby man, is out there being like, the Lisk killer is like just like me, basically, and it's like, shut up, Dennis.
Nope, not in any way. What a fucking idiot. Fuck him.
He's such a dweeb. I can't believe he makes statements.
If Dennis Rader does have a copycat killer, we will be sure to not cover that because he doesn't deserve the coverage.
No, like, but I mean, it's cool though, because he's clearly very much like following shit about himself. So it is great to state emphatically that he has not had a copycat killer.
Yeah, no copycat killer. You're a fucking loser. I will hashtag Dennis Rader on this, so maybe he'll find our podcast and he can hear us say that he's a fucking big dork.
Him and his fucking square ass head, Dennis.
Piece of shit.
Floppy disk motherfucker.
Yeah, what a fucking dildo. God, fuck that guy. I think
we should all rebrand him too from BTK, which is a cool nickname. We should change it to the floppy disk like killer.
The floppy disk bandit. There we go.
Yeah,
the floppy disk bandit. He doesn't even get to get called a killer. He's just a bandit.
Yeah, just a bandit. floppy disk. What scamp? What's like the even like dumber name?
Floppy disk dunce. How about that?
Yeah, that's a great name for him. Yeah.
That guy's a fucking dweeb. All right. Okay, now that we've dunked on Dennis Rader, I think it's time for us to wrap this up. Thanks everybody for listening. Please like, rate, review. Please continue to comment on our Spotify. That's super fun to read through. We read all of them.
Love it.
And we appreciate the interaction. I guess that's it. Until next week.
Sweet.
Au revoir.
Please.
Bye.
Bye.